That's what I call... That's the first time on video. We did it a couple times earlier today. That's the first time we've ever played together something. And this is episode 4, AP and PK.
I told you I was going to mess it up.
You didn't mess it up! I'll have to watch back, but...
At the beginning, I looked at you because I thought I fucked it up.
So, you didn't fuck it up. Alright. But what you did do is you played an accompaniment to me, and I did a little bit of lead, and you did a little bit of rhythm, and I thought it was pretty good.
You think so? You should look at the footage over though. Make sure.
You know what? I felt it. It was good. Well, dude, let me think. You've been playing about a month now, and obviously the topic of this episode is showing your progress on strumming a pattern, a rhythm, and that's what you did. We played, it was G, D, C, D pattern, right? Those 3 chords over 4 bars. So the 4 bars would be G, D for a bar, C, back to the D. So 3 chords in a 4-chord pattern. And let's hear you do it again. This time I won't play so they can just see your progress, but I will count you in. And keep in mind, this is the rhythm part. So the whole purpose is for you to keep time to the best of your ability as a new player. And I'll count you in now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's good.
It was a lot better with the camera on because I feel like I can't fuck
it. Now that I've watched you do that, let's talk about some of the pitfalls that somebody might run into. I noticed on episode 3, open chords, that at a certain point I had mentioned that your guitar may be a little bit out of tune on some of the chords, but it was not. Your guitar is in perfect tune. And part of being new to guitar is developing all these tactile senses, basically, all these tactile feedback mechanisms that your brain will get listening to what you're doing and self-correcting. And what the problem was, as I examined the video, was that not all of the finger pressure was even. And what can happen with a guitar or with an instrument like the guitar is if you're pressing one, you can bend a note a little bit out of tune, one note in the chord, and make the guitar or the chord sound out of tune. If I bend like, there's it in tune here, go out, back in. So even though your guitar is in perfect tune, it may sound out of tune a little bit because as you're fretting the notes, you may be bending certain notes out of tune. And that's where the real importance of having a real set of eyes and ears look at you, or listen to you, more importantly, listen to you play, rather than just somebody who's learning off of YouTube, because you probably had no idea.
But I was doing that?
Right.
Yeah. No.
And then I actually made it a point not to tell you earlier, because I wanted to tell you here.
Oh, okay.
Just because it's very normal. And, and also, right now, your brain is going as fast as it can, because you know when you're strumming on that G, you're already aware that there's a change coming to the D.
Yeah. And
you're already worried about that, and you've got to get to it as fast as you can. And in doing that, your accuracy is the first thing to go. When you play something a little bit faster than maybe you're ready for, the first thing that's going to go out the window is your accuracy, which is why it's important to practice at a speed that you can do it perfectly at. So that way you're not practicing the bad accuracy. You're practicing with good accuracy. So let me go ahead and play a G chord, and I'm going to look at it. And then I can hear, and even though I know your guitar is in tune, the pressure of some of these may not be perfectly even. You may be pressing maybe a little bit harder with your index finger. So this B right here that's in the G chord, you've got a G, and then the next note here, this is a B, might be a little bit sharp if you're pressing too hard here, or it might be the other way around. It may be that you're pressing too hard on this G note. And then also, you've got open strings, which you have no fingers on. So that's going to be perfect if your guitar is in tune. That's going to be perfect. This G here is going to be perfect. And with this version of the G chord you're playing, you're not grabbing this note, so you're going to have a B here. Those are open, so those are always perfect. So you're mixing fretted notes with open strings. So if the amount of power you're applying to the strings, the amount of pressure is not consistent, you're going to have that sound where it's slightly out of tune, where when I fret a note, I'm fretting the note with just enough pressure on the fingers to fret the note. No more, and obviously no less. If it was too little, then it wouldn't be fretted. It'd be dead. So that's the next thing, is to work on these subtleties with your chords. That's something you're gonna work on. And whenever you learn a new chord, you have this tendency to, not you, I mean people in general have this tendency to kind of muscle it, to squeeze harder because it's a new chord. And not only does that lead to pain in the wrist and strain of the muscles, but also it lends itself to the chord not sounding the way it probably should. It sounds like shit. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it can. But to do a strumming pattern where you're at right now, I'm very impressed with you being able to do it. But are you, and now I'm going to stop talking so much. We're going to have to hear, because they want to know what it's like for you, because you're the new player. So in your opinion, when you're doing that strumming pattern, do you feel like you're rushed, like, oh god, I got to change chords again? I'm stopping to talk now. I've talked too much.
I felt a bit more comfortable after I practiced it for the week. Like at the beginning of the week, it felt awful. Like you saw me when you were telling me, okay, this is what you have to practice. It didn't feel good,
right,
at all. But I usually remember you were telling me that how much pressure I put on the string changes the sound. If I hear something that's off, I'll usually check each one. But I didn't know that was why. So I would just go back and kind of reset without thinking, okay, maybe that's the reason why.
Do you think that if you're being rushed because you're up against a metronome or something, that maybe your accuracy will go, if you're going faster than you should, your accuracy will suffer a little bit?
Yeah.
So I noticed when we were doing this, when I watched you earlier, you went from the G, and you went to the D, and if we rewind the tape and look, you're actually strumming that low E string, or you did at least one time, which in a D chord, the D major triad, there is no E note. So that there's a dissonance if you play that. And that's not there if you don't play that E. So you remember with the D chord, you're only strumming either the top 5 or top 4 strings, and you can skip strumming that one.
Yeah. Switching to this one was tough.
The C chord you found to be a little bit more of a stretch, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, going back and forth on that one was difficult. It still feels a bit off, but
I noticed with a lot of I feel like there's more than two, but when I see people that play guitar that are relatively newer, or maybe they're people that have been playing for like a few months or a year, there's two major groups that I would classify them in, and one are people that primarily all they do are they play the church chords, open chords, like some good old Christian rock chords. But no, just some open chords like that, and they just kind of strum. Maybe they're acoustic players, they got an acoustic guitar, and maybe their goal is to be like strumming some chords to sing. So they're kind of like, that's their main thing they do. They're strumming chords. And the other group is maybe a group that they were more influenced by like rock. They wanted to get an electric guitar, and they spend a lot of time like doing power chords or doing like stuff like that, and their strumming is their weak part. And for you, if you notice, we did I can't remember if it was episode 2. It was episode 1 or 2. It was 2 where we did the pentatonic scale, and then we went right to the open chords. And I know for me, when I first started playing, electric guitar, I was all about like rock, and strumming like those kind of chords didn't appeal to me, and that was a big weakness for me as a new guitar player, was strumming, keeping time, changing chords. I was better at the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Probably still am a little bit better at the other stuff, even though I can do both now. But so for you, I'm trying to make sure you're well-rounded. And the strumming, do you find that to be maybe like not as a cooler part of the guitar as maybe doing riffs and stuff?
Well, I practiced this a lot without the guitar plugged into the amp. Just because there wasn't, it wasn't like a song, so I wouldn't be like, oh, I want to actually hear it. Like, I don't want it to sound. I mean, I want it to sound like the song. It wasn't the case, so I could just like unplug this and just practice them.
So when you're doing like you were practicing Highway to Hell before,
yeah,
you were turning the amp on and you're getting a little bit of distortion going. Yeah. Because you were kind of rocking out.
Yeah, because I would do it first without it, just to see if I was like lying to myself, and maybe I'm just like I don't know,
just lying to.
Yeah, just
you shouldn't lie to yourself.
Masking like the mistakes.
You might find out about it.
So yeah, I tried it without it, but it got boring, so I had to plug it back in.
Okay, but my main point is I do notice those two types. I have another buddy of mine who's actually like he can shred. But he cannot hold down a strumming pattern with chords, with a rhythm, to save his life. It's just he just practiced the other thing the whole time. So a few years ago, I kind of told him like this kind of work on this a little bit, and then he became a more well-rounded player. But that was years after he'd been playing. He still had that deficiency. Yeah. But really, that is a rudimentary section of guitar is strumming chords. And you got to build upon that foundation, and then also, doing riffs and learning the solo stuff, also. But again, week after week, I know I say this every single time, but you're making really good progress. You're strumming chords. You've been playing a month. Is it even a full month yet?
I'm not sure.
About a month, right?
Yeah.
This is episode 4. So yeah, that's 4 weeks worth of stuff. And I don't know if I might have mixed up what week it was before, but I know it's week 4 for you. And any other, just for the sake of anybody else that might be in your same position, if they're following along on these at some point.
Like about the chords or what?
Just what you're feeling with the guitar, and also if you have anything like, just whatever you're experiencing, so that way if maybe something that's happening to them, maybe they feel like it's a problem like that they're having, but really it's not. It's a problem that everybody kind of has to work through.
Just sitting down with it feels more comfortable. Like it felt really weird first.
It did.
Just when I came here too, like grabbing it and without having it plugged in, just kind of messing with it. I felt a lot more self-conscious, but now you know what I mean? Like it's a bit more natural, which helps. I feel like I might progress faster now because of that. Maybe it has nothing to do with it, but
you felt like real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like somebody just came right in and just plopped a big old bag full of sex toys in your lap and said, there you go, buddy.
Yeah, it felt weird.
No, but seriously. So that's one thing, but what about... I also noticed that you may not even notice that you're making... that the way you're holding it is evolving slightly.
Is it?
It is. The way you're holding the pick and the way your hand is moving, and also the position of your arm... Before, you were way down here, and now you're more in the correct position. And I kind of told you, I said, we worked on it because I could see it was weird. And pretty much nothing, I tried, and nothing I could tell you really fixed it. Remember, we had like a disconnect, and I said, this might be one of those things that kind of fixes itself, and it really has. Like, you found the right position somehow. And that's not something that you consciously tried to do, right? It just kind of happened.
My wrist too, like it used to hurt. Remember I told you?
Yeah, you said you were having some wrist pain.
Yeah.
And I thought that might be the inconsistent amount of pressure that you're putting on everything. It could have been that, and then now you've realized, like naturally through the course of doing it, that you don't have to depress all the strings that hard. So you stopped, and then the pain alleviated itself. Or it could have been that you were using muscles that you weren't used to using, and now they've gotten used to it. there's a couple of different things that could have been. If it persisted, obviously we would have to put it under the looking glass a lot closer and figure out why is this happening. But as I suspected, it was the natural part of beginning something new, the awkwardness of doing something you've never done before, and it did kind of solve itself.
Yeah.
And then the last thing before we go, you wanna get them brownies?
What?
No, I'm just joking. The last thing before we go, I'm gonna ask you is how are you still enjoying the process?
I like it.
You still like it?
Yeah, like it goes back to what I was saying. I just feel more comfortable.
Your
at
investment
home.
in buying the guitar and the amp, you feel like it was all a good decision
Yep.
still, and you want to continue past month 1.
Yeah.
Into uncharted territory. That is us. Actually, before we go, let's play us out. Are you ready? Let's do that chord sequence one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4.